The 3D visualization was begun with an image taken from Google Earth and overlaid with photograph locations, which is brought into a 3D program called Blender. From this, at a slightly closer angle, a second Google Earth image was brought in showing the subject property, and a third image, the survey and contour lines of the area, was also brought in, and all three were scaled, rotated, and located appropriately relative to each other. On top of the survey map, this time in the 2D program Illustrator, the contours were traced. Here are the contours. Contours were traced at 10-foot vertical intervals. They were brought into Blender and used to create a three-dimensional model of the topography so that this could be used to determine the heights of the properties relative to the cameras. Houses were built. This is the subject property in its present condition, and additional houses were added on neighboring locations in order to give the impression of a row of 28-foot high buildings, similar to that being proposed for the subject property. Here is one of the cameras in the scene, and this camera is 5098. The zoom lens was set at 70mm focal length as a photograph was being taken, and we can see the photograph in the background up here. So let's look at background images. 5098, this has the eye icon next to it. Let's increase the opacity so that it's a little clearer. And we can see in 5098 the houses in their correct positions. Let's look at them in shaded mode. And this is how the render would be taken. The render would then be saved out as a PNG file with transparency. This is the render. And then composited into the original photograph in Photoshop. Let's have a look at that. So here is another rendering, this time from the 5101 camera, showing the 24-foot proposed extension to the existing property, and it's been saved as a PNG file with transparency. This allows us to trim it more easily in Photoshop, as we'll see in a moment. And there are two little dots in the corner to make sure that the entire frame is selected and pasted correctly into Photoshop. So I'll hit Control A, Control C to copy, Control W to close, Control V to paste, and we have the target property in the correct location and elevation in position as viewed from the beach. However, there's a good deal of occlusion. There's vegetation and existing properties in front of it. What I've done is to paint over those with a black marker, a black brush, so that when we bring in our image, I can select the outline of that black cutaway, delete it, and we've got our property correctly located and occluded in position as it will be seen from the beach if constructed.